This is CBC Here and Now.
We're satisfied that justice was served. She was very happy to have the case resolved.
Found guilty. The jury convicts an RNC officer of sexual assault.
As supporters of the victim rally downtown.
We're going to take a ride on the temperature roller coaster this week, but we're going to end at the top to the end of the weekend.
The City of St. John's and Eastern Health signed a deal to work towards making St. John's become a healthier city. But it's not going to be easy. I'm Jeremy Eaton, and I'll tell you why coming up on Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Anthony Germain.
And I'm Carolyn Stokes. So let's get to our top story. A jury found Doug Snellgrove guilty of sexual assault over the weekend. It was the third trial in 4 years for the suspended RNC officer.
Well, tonight you're going to hear from an advocate who wants a change in the way that survivors are treated in these kinds of cases, and the chief of police is also weighing in.
Yes, Here and Now's Heather Gillis was there when jurors delivered their verdict on Saturday. So Heather, let's start with the police chief. What's he saying today?
Well, Carolyn, Police Chief Joe Boland weighed in on that guilty verdict today. In a statement, he says that Doug Snellgrove will remain suspended without pay until all legal proceedings are concluded, which could take some time.
In a case full of dramatic twists and turns, a jury convicted RNC Constable Doug Snellgrove of sexual assault Saturday afternoon. A shock after the jury had reached an impasse Friday night, saying they were unable to make a unanimous decision. As the verdict was read, Snellgrove hung his head and hunched in his chair. Crown Prosecutor Lloyd Strickland said justice had been served.
Can't really speak to her. She was very happy to have the case resolved. That's all I can say.
It's been a long road for the victim, known only as Jane Doe. The assault happened after the on-duty officer gave her a ride home from a bar in late 2014. She'd been drinking. Snellgrove entered her home. She can't remember if she consented, but does remember coming to during the assault. In a 2017 trial, Snellgrove was acquitted. It was appealed and a new trial was ordered because of a judge's error. The Crown brought parts of the law all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada to iron out issues about abuse of power and consent that weren't allowed during the first trial.
She permitted him to come into her house in circumstances where she might not have permitted anyone else. So that was the abuse of trust or authority that I had argued that had negated her consent.
Without that, I don't think we would have seen a guilty verdict on Saturday.
After Snellgrove's second trial, this advocate demonstrated outside the courthouse for days in support of the victim. On Saturday, she was there again, awaiting the verdict.
This shows there will be consequences, because if a cop is found guilty, anyone can be found guilty.
She hopes Snellgrove's conviction will encourage more people to come forward, but also says survivors have a major distrust of the justice system. And parts of this trial highlight why there needs to be a change in the way courts deal with sexual assault. She wants to see a sexual violence court where staff are trained in trauma.
Quebec is currently looking at a sexual violence court, and they've moved, I believe, to the committee phase. So I'm paying very close attention to that because I think it is a model that could be implemented here.
Meanwhile, the police chief says once all the criminal proceedings are done, the RNC public complaints process will begin. After that, he can decide Snellgrove's future. The Crown says it will seek jail time for Snellgrove, but can't say how much.
Well, Snellgrove's lawyer, Randy Piercy, can't say if they're going to appeal yet. He says it's too early. After the judge gives his decision on sentencing, they have 30 days to appeal. That could be sometime late this summer, maybe even early fall. Snellgrove is going to be back in court on June 7th. That's going to be for setting a date for a sentencing hearing. Reporting live in St. John's, I'm Heather Gillis for Here and Now.
Well, this case has certainly sparked conversations about consent and abuse of power. We'll get into that discussion in about half an hour with an interview with the executive director of the Sexual Assault Crisis and Prevention Center and a spokesperson with the Journey Project.
Well, A fairly quiet day today weather-wise. We're sitting under a ridge of high pressure. We're still seeing some cloud cover with that, but if you were outside at all today in the eastern areas and then the northeastern areas as well, you may have noticed some haze in the sky, and there was a discussion on Twitter earlier today. It looks like it is from the volcano in Iceland, so that is some ash that's stuck in the atmosphere. You have to go back quite a while to see that, but that probably was what that haze was today. So we do have that area of high pressure. That northerly flow also is what is bringing that down, but it's also leading to these cooler temperatures, 5-6 degrees in those north-facing areas, 6 degrees in St. John's, but further away you get, the nicer the temperatures. 13 degrees in Badger today, 17 in Corner Brook, 16 degrees in Lab City today. Very different story from what we have been seeing for the last little bit. You're going to see a drastic change in those temperatures though, and we're on a roller coaster, but they are on their way up as we head towards the weekend. I'll get into all of those details coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, 14 new cases of COVID-19 were reported in the province over the weekend, all related to travel within Canada. And today, an additional 10 new cases were found on the island. 6 of those cases are in the western region. 2 are in central and 2 in eastern. The number of COVID cases connected to the Codroy Valley is now 9, 3 of which are tied to a local school. Public Health says there is no evidence of community spread there. Now that brings Newfoundland and Labrador's total number of COVID cases to 93. Almost half of those are in the Eastern Health region. Now the province also issued a flight advisory today. Anyone who traveled on PAL flight PB902 from Wabush to Deer Lake last Sunday, that's May the 9th, should be tested. There's also an outbreak at a work camp in Ontario where some people from this province are employed. That's at the I Am Gold Cote Mine project in Gogama. Anyone who returned home from that site within the last 2 weeks should self-isolate and call 811 to arrange testing.
Well, tonight we're bringing you a story that's part of a Canada-wide project called Schooling Under Stress. And we're sharing the voices and views of thousands of teachers from British Columbia to right here in Newfoundland and Labrador. Now, we found these views through a questionnaire that CBC sent directly to education professionals. Now, in this province, many of the respondents told us that they support mandatory COVID vaccinations for school staff, and they had concerns about where teachers were on the priority list to get the needle. Here now is Rob Antle with the details.
As more vaccines roll in, more people are getting their shots to give them more protection against COVID-19. We asked teachers a series of questions about their pandemic experience. 200 education professionals in Newfoundland and Labrador responded. They were asked whether vaccines should be mandatory for school staff. More than 3/4 of those who answered in this province said yes, among the highest percentages of regions that were surveyed.
This is probably the hottest topic in terms of employment law, and so I'm getting calls nonstop on it.
Lawyer Ryan Watkins says employers are required to keep workplaces safe. His opinion is that could include vaccinations, with some exceptions for medical or religious reasons.
I believe that employers, and in this case, a school board, can require that teachers and students are vaccinated.
But there are no plans for that to happen here in Newfoundland and Labrador.
Highly suggested, but at this point we're not considering legal measures to make it mandatory.
6 months later, the same message from health officials. A COVID-19 vaccination is not mandatory in this province, and public health is not considering changes to that.
We have said that teachers will be in level 2, and that still remains the case. We do have some higher risk groups to get through, some priority groups to get through before we get there.
They got there for teachers earlier this month, an open call for them to get vaccinations. But respondents to the questionnaire thought that should have happened sooner.
Teachers should have been vaccinated at the very beginning of Phase 2. This wait is unacceptable. We deserve better. We're at a very high risk of contracting COVID-19. Teachers should have been vaccinated when students return to class. Teachers are in every household bubble in the province, and as essential workers, We should be treated with the respect we deserve. It is also an insult to be one of the last groups to be vaccinated. I would have expected to be vaccinated prior to the reopening of schools.
The NLTA recently said that about 15 teachers from Mount Pearl Senior High got COVID-19 during the February outbreak there. Across the country, about 85% of respondents to our questionnaire said they are somewhat or very concerned about contracting COVID-19 at work. Rob Antle, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, the head of Eastern Health spoke publicly today for the first time since the release of the Green Report. Now, that report recommended slashing funding by 25% and consolidating the 4 regional health authorities into one. Here Now's Jeremy Eaton has more.
Eastern Health joined St. John's Mayor Danny Breen this morning to announce a 10-year partnership with the city to work to make it healthier and happier. Eastern Health has an annual budget of $1.5 billion. That's 20% of the province's entire budget. Moya Green says it needs to slim down.
$750 million, which I think would be the sum if you added the savings up over 6 years, would be half of the current budget of Eastern Health. So the impact would be quite significant, but we've not done the work to actually indicate what that would mean in terms of service changes.
Diamond didn't shy away from media questions about the Green Report's recommendation that the 4 boards in this province become one. Years ago, he was a higher up on Alberta Health Services Board when that province consolidated into one public corporation.
But once you get to the other side, it is a very valid model and certainly would allow the province to manage its healthcare system in a very streamlined fashion. So I'm certainly not opposed to one provincial system.
But that decision isn't one that Eastern Health has to make.
I have no doubt that if we're going to be sustainable as a province, there will need to be some savings found in the healthcare system, as there will need to be across all of government and through a variety of sectors. And so we're certainly prepared as Eastern Health to step up and do our part.
While reporters asked questions about cuts, the mayor talked about a 10-year plan to make St. John's healthier.
It's an important day for us as we move forward to identify what makes a healthy and happy St. John's, and identify those and use those results in our future planning.
For the next few weeks, St. John's will ask what's needed to make the city healthier and happier. But with a bike plan that's infuriating runners and walkers, the mayor knows it's going to be a tough sell.
It is challenging and it's not going to happen. That's why it's not a 1-year or 2-year strategy. It's a 10-year strategy, and one that'll have to be reworked as you meet the needs of the population.
From walking trails to clean drinking water, affordable housing to food security, this new plan aims to be driven by the people who engage with it.
I don't know if I can pinpoint and say I want to see this, and this, but I want to see a better coordination of the resources through the city.
The deadline for residents to have their say is in June. The city hopes to release a report on the feedback it's received in the fall. Jeremy Eaton, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, there were pro-Palestinian protests in St. John's over the weekend, as well as one today outside our own CBC building.
The reactions and support of the international community brings me hope. This time, the voices of Palestinians are being heard. And this time, it will be different. This time, there must be real, meaningful, lasting action for the uplifting of Palestinians.
Hear, hear!
So that was a scene yesterday afternoon outside the Colonial Building in St. John's near Bannerman Park. The group is raising awareness over the latest Israeli-Palestinian conflict in the Middle East. Nearly 200 people gathered to show their support for Palestine. Meanwhile, a new round of airstrikes hit the Gaza Strip today as fighting between Israel and Hamas rolled into a second week.
Well, the Fogo Island Change Island ferry is back in service. The Legionnaire was pulled off the run last week and replaced with plane and chopper services. The minister responsible says the vessel hit the dock in Farewell on Tuesday after one of its thrusters stopped operating. The vessel went back into service yesterday.
Well, a big donation today to help renovate a hospital unit in St. John's for people who are dealing with cancer. $100,000 are being spent to upgrade family and patient rooms inside Unit 4 North A at the Health Sciences Centre. The hospital wing is for cancer patients who are receiving acute care, and they can stay there as long as is required, with space set aside for family members to be with them. Employees of Newfoundland Power, as you can see there, donated the money.
This donation is going to allow us to take our very functional but very institutional looking private rooms on 4 North A and transform them into a very warm, welcoming, homey atmosphere for these patients who at times can spend months on end in hospital undergoing their cancer treatments as well as treating side effects. So this is going to allow them a very warm, welcoming space where they can heal both mentally and physically, and as well transform our waiting area for their family members, that they can go out and have a little rest, regenerate, be able to support their family member who's in hospital.
Well, she's been the face of the pandemic for more than a year, and now she has her COVID-19 vaccine.
I'm really excited today because I'm actually, because over 30s can book now, I can actually get my vaccine. So I'm going to join the more than 210,000 people who've already rolled up their sleeves to get their vaccine and to do their part.
Yes, Dr. Janet Fitzgerald rolled up her sleeve on Friday to get vaccinated. Now, you may remember the Chief Medical Officer of Health delivered the very first shot of the vaccine in December to Ellen Foley-Vick, a nurse with Eastern Health. Now, the tables were turned on Friday when that same nurse gave Fitzgerald her first dose. So far, 227,000 people have received their first dose in Newfoundland and Labrador, or 47% of eligible people. As of today, anyone over 12 can book a shot.
There are more questions about building a hospital in a floodplain.
In my view, it's equivalent to building in the river.
I'm Mark Quinn. I'll have more on that coming up tomorrow on Here and Now.
Well, it looks nice out there, but it is deceivingly chilly. Temperatures are on the rise, though, through the week. I'll get into all those details in your full forecast coming up.
This weather update is brought to you by Newfoundland and Labrador Tourism. It's time to explore the great wide open. Plan your trip at yourbackyardbeckons.ca.
Time for a look at the weather, but before we get to that, we have a contest to tell you about. The May 24th long weekend is fast approaching, and this year, the May 2-4 holiday actually falls on May 24th.
Does not happen very often. No, we're launching a contest for this week. We want you to submit photos that show us that it's spring in Newfoundland and Labrador without having to say it's spring in Newfoundland and Labrador.
Yeah, first thing that popped into my mind was like a pothole.
Yeah.
That's not so pretty. So like things like daffodils or
bird's nest.
Nest, you know, just use your imagination, something that says spring without having to say spring. And we'll draw names for a couple of prize packs. And you can see Ashley and I are showing off those prizes, pretending to be chilly because it's so chilly this time of year, particularly when you're barbecuing. Here and now apron there and a toque, which of course you'll want for spring barbecuing.
Yes, you definitely will. Keep you nice and warm. So send us your photos at nlphotos@cbc.ca. Yes, so tonight you will certainly need that toque if you are outside barbecuing anywhere along the northeast coast. Not so much for the rest. Look at these temperatures today. 17 degrees in Corner Brook, 16 in Lab City. It's been a while since you've seen temperatures that warm. Valley Goose Bay as well, reaching those double digits, 14 degrees and 11 in Cartwright this afternoon. Temperatures still sitting there beautifully right now into the evening hours. And we're looking at temperatures dropped down to 4 degrees in St. John's, 3 degrees in Bonavista. And again, it's because those winds, although they're fairly light, are in that onshore flow. So we are seeing those cooler temperatures. The good news is those winds will shift as we head through the overnight tonight. Taking a look at satellite radar, not a whole lot on the go. We did see some showers move through the west coast and some cloud cover as well. But you can see plenty of sunshine up through Bonavista North, Bonavista, as well as the northern Avalon earlier today. So taking a look at the future tracker for tonight, some showers are working their way across the Maritime provinces, going to move into Labrador as we head through the evening hours tonight. There is some lightning happening with some of those storm systems, but there's a slight chance, they're happening right outside of Labrador right now. There's a chance we may see some, but more than likely just going to see some showers through the overnight. That's going to work their way through. About 5 to 10 millimeters on the way for Lab West. Few chance of showers as we head through the next couple of hours for the southern half of the island, and then that should actually clear out. Staying cloudy though in the west and south as we head into the overnight. Maybe a few showers for southeastern portions of Labrador, but there's those showers making their way through as we head into the early morning. Temperatures tonight will be sitting somewhere between 1 and 2 degrees. Cartwright sitting around -2, and then most of the island will actually be sitting somewhere between 2 to 4 degrees. Those low-lying areas through central may see those temperatures dipping about -2, and even the Avalon may see that as well. There's that wind shift I was talking about, southwesterlies tonight. Not a whole lot to speak of, but about 10 to 15 kilometers per hour, and generally light for the west coast as well. Now, taking a look at the future tracker for tomorrow, these showers will work their way across Labrador into the afternoon. Not a whole lot happening for the island. Some increasing cloud, though, for the southwest and west as we head into the afternoon. Chance of a few showers for pretty much Green Bay, White Bay, all along through to the northern Avalon into the afternoon. But overall, you're looking at a mix of sun and cloud through the day. And then those showers will move towards the coast as we head into the evening and overnight hours. Portions of northern Labrador, even Lab West in behind that front as it moves through, you could see a few flurries in the mix as well. So your 16-degree temperature today is not going to be 16 degrees tomorrow. You're looking at single-digit highs through the day. However, temperatures are going to start to warm up, and that's because we'll see that wind shift finally. So back up to those double digits. Bonavista, you're looking at the potential for the temperatures to be into the single digits towards the coast, but further inland, you should reach those double digits. And again, that risk of showers right across the board. Marystown at 11 degrees through the afternoon. Similar temperatures as we head towards central, 13 degrees. Harbour Breton, you'll sit around 9 degrees as your afternoon high. And then as we head towards the west coast, another nice day tomorrow. Some increasing cloud though through the day, so the morning will be the nicest. And then For southern Newfoundland, you're looking at those southeast winds, so you're in that onshore flow, some cooler temperatures, about 6-7 degrees as your daytime highs, 10 to 11 for the northern peninsula, or 8 to 10 for the northern peninsula. And then Cartwright, another double-digit day for you, 13 degrees. And then there's those single-digit temperatures for Lab City, Churchill Falls, and Nain tomorrow. Now, that isn't going to last very long. These temperatures are going to climb. We're finally going to see some nice spring-like weather as we head towards the long weekend. It is looking fairly nice. Some areas potentially even reaching the 20-degree mark, but I will break all of that down for you coming up.
This past weekend, this past 6-7 years, has really highlighted the systemic inequities that exist, the problems that exist within the criminal justice system.
How long will Doug Snellgrove go to prison for? After 3 court trials, the RNC officer is found guilty of sexual assault. We'll get reaction from groups who help survivors navigate the system.
Well, as we heard earlier, a jury has found RNC officer Doug Snellgrove guilty of sexual assault. Now, many people in the province have been closely following this case, which was tried 3 times in court. Over the past 4 years, it sparked many protests and public signs of support for Jane Doe, the young woman at the heart of this story. It's also sparked conversations about consent and about abuse of power. Joining me now are 2 people who work with victims of sexual assault. Sandra McKellar is the head of the province's Sexual Assault Crisis and Prevention Centre, and Janet Lee is with the Journey Project. So Sandra, I'll start with you. Can you begin by helping us understand the toll sexual assault takes on an individual and the people around them?
What I'd like to comment on is it's such a traumatizing experience that for the individual who experiences it, but also for those who try to support that individual, it's a visceral response. It goes behind all what we call our socially acceptable ways of responding. It's traumatizing. It should not be happening. In fact, it is preventable. And when we try to provide support, part of it that comes into it would be that feeling of helplessness and so many of the other feelings that people who have undergone trauma experience. And to keep repeating and having to go through that experience, it does damage every time. But taking care of oneself is critical. Okay, and that sometimes is the most courageous thing to do.
There's 2 main kind of feelings or responses that keep me in this work. The first one is anger, and the second one is hope. And I think that so often when we're talking to survivors, when we're talking to victims, when we're talking about people who have experienced sexual violence, a huge part of that conversation is what happened wasn't okay, what happened was not just, and I don't want this to happen to anybody else. And so often that is the feeling that kind of keeps people going. So everyone's response is going to be unique. Everyone's going to have a different response. At the end of the day, one thing that everyone has in common is that what was done to them, what happened to them, never should have happened in the first place. And I think that's one of the consistent things that we hear, both from survivors and from their support networks.
So this outcome is a win for the Crown and for the victim, but for many people, this process itself was kind of like a worst case scenario. This is 3 trials, years of public scrutiny. What kind of message does that send to victims of sexual assault and to the broader community?
I think for a number of things that come up, people question why don't survivors and victims of sexual violence report. They say things like, I may not be believed. They get re-traumatized. It is an ongoing process which feels never ending. I have to expose myself there and everybody's asking me all kinds of questions, which really, it's too difficult. So that's one of the things. It also exposed, I think, the need for systemic change.
And this question of belief, I would imagine, is a big thing for someone who has survived an attack, a sexual assault survivor. When you are dealing with survivors who come to you, what do you think the effect that this case could potentially have on people when it comes to them coming forward and wanting to be believed?
You know, Carolyn, that is such a big question. And even hearing the question, I'm kind of like, whew, that's a wave. Trauma has ripple effects. It has ripple effects on the individual. It has ripple effects on their families or support people, their immediate community, and of course what we're seeing right now is it also has ripple effects throughout the province. The other thing that I was contemplating a lot this weekend watching the show of support for Jane Doe, the Thank You for Jane Doe project, was that support too can have ripple effects. And so I hope that Jane Doe and every Jane or John or person Doe in this province who has experienced sexual violence knows that there is support available, knows that there are people here to hold space for them. This can be so hard for so many people right now. And so what can we all be doing to be kind to ourselves into this process and be kind to each other? So that if we're seeing disclosures from friends, family members, acquaintances, Facebook friends, on Twitter, whatever that looks like, that we're responding supportively.
you look at social media, people were emotionally invested in the outcome of this case. Why do you think this case has struck a chord with the public?
I think there are a number of things. One, this is a third occasion around the same incident. Also, when we look at positions that people hold in our society, some of them, the expectation is it's based on trust, it's based on support, and those are positions that whenever they're questioned or there are allegations of behaviors that are not in line with what we expect, rightly so, then the response is it shakes up not just about that particular situation, but about possibly other positions, other roles which are held in trust, which are supposed to protect some of our most vulnerable.
This past weekend, this past 6-7 years, has really highlighted the systemic inequities that exist, the problems that exist within the criminal justice system, the challenges that survivors face when trying to navigate them, and why there is so much change that is necessary. And I think that it's not like there's not a one-size-fits-all response in this situation. I think there's a lot of things that need to be taken into account. So we've heard calls for a sexual violence, domestic violence specific court. We talk so often about trauma-informed training for legal stakeholders, particularly for the judiciary. We talk about increased supports through victim services or through the Journey Project or through other organizations that are doing this incredible work. We talk about expanding the supports and services of the Sexual Assault Center. And so all of these things, I think, need to come together to respond to that incredible grassroots groundswell that has happened around this case. And so I think that one of the things that we need to be mindful of is that, like, in so many ways, I hope for the people at the center of this story, for Jane Doe and her people, that this is a time where they can move forward, where she can move forward with healing, knowing that there's an entire community of us out there that are still working so hard towards the accountability, the healing, and the justice that every single survivor deserves.
So much more to talk about on this issue. I'm sure there will be many discussions to come. Well, Sandra McKellar and Janet Lee, thank you so much for this.
Thank you, Carolyn.
With another team of nurses headed to help Ontario, what's the experience been like? We'll check in with one of the team members who's been there now for weeks. That's coming up on Here and Now. Tomorrow, another group of healthcare workers is heading to Ontario. This is the third group of doctors and nurses to go help with the strain that COVID has put on that province. Well, Jennifer Hinks is a nurse practitioner. She was part of the first group to go, and we've reached her in Ontario. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, first of all, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I've actually decided to stay for a little bit longer. I have a rest day today, so trying to just rest and recharge my batteries to get back to go to work again. But I'm doing well. I'm hanging in there thanks to the support of family and friends and everyone back home.
So give me an idea, what sort of things have you been doing?
Myself and the other 5 nurses that are here have been working at the Toronto General Hospital Med-Surg ICU. In this unit, it's what they call the last line of defense here in Ontario. All of our patients are COVID patients, and they're on what's called ECMO, which is a form of life support that pumps your blood outside of your body into a heart and lung machine, and that machine removes carbon dioxide and returns this oxygen-filled blood back to your body to allow the heart and lungs time to rest and heal. So we have really been on the front lines, or as people here like to call it, the last line of defense in this pandemic. We have been integrating into the unit, taking patient assignments, and really working to our skill set and working hard to support patients and their families throughout this very challenging time. When we first left, we said we were a small but mighty team, and we were coming to Toronto to make a big impact, and I truly believe that we have. 6 nurses in a unit that is overrun and short-staffed and has been for months, with patients who are the sickest patients I have ever seen. I didn't know what sick was until I came to Ontario, and to be able to have a nurse, a nurse who is mentally refreshed and available to be at a bedside and support their colleagues and staff and take care of these patients has been such a reprieve for the unit.
How hard is that on you personally as you're dealing with all these people who have so many challenges and, as you said, these are the hardest hit people from COVID-19?
I don't think I've truly had time to process it yet. What I do know is that this is probably going to be one of the most profound experiences of my career. It's hard to process what I'm seeing and how profound the work is. It's been hard, but we've been very fortunate to have a mental health team from Eastern Health that has been checking in with us every week and supporting us throughout this process. The nurses that I've been working with are truly inspiring, and there are no words to describe what they've been facing. And the whole time that we've been here, we've known in the back of our minds that we get to leave, but the nurses here don't have that privilege or that opportunity. This is their lives, and this has been their lives for the past 14 months. So I think that when I do leave, I'll be leaving a piece of me here, and a piece of me, a piece of this experience will live on with me forever. I think that it won't be until I get home that I truly process what this experience was like.
What's the reaction been like from staff and from patients when they hear that you came all the way from Newfoundland in order to help?
It's been outstanding. The nurses and staff have welcomed us with open arms. Every single person who has discovered I'm from Newfoundland, I proudly wear my Newfoundland Hurt and Scrub hat, and of course the Newfoundland accent is hard to go unnoticed, and everyone has thanked us from the bottom of their hearts. I had a nurse tell me the other day that she felt rejuvenated to come to work that morning because she knew that she was coming into a unit where 6 extra people were there that were trained critical care nurses that would be able to alleviate some of that stress and help out. We have received thank you notes and letters and food from people we've never even met before. Everyone has gone out of their way to express their gratitude and make sure that that we feel welcomed.
So when do you come home?
So I am leaving in a week from now. So I've decided to stay for a month. I wish that I could stay longer, but of course I have a job and a family back home that I have to get back to. But I'm looking forward to spending another week here.
Well, I appreciate you taking time on your day off to tell us about it, and good luck with your last week.
Thank you so much for having me.
Ottawa has launched the first part of its program to help Canadians retrofit their homes to make them more energy efficient. It's going to start hiring and training the people who will advise homeowners about what steps they should take. The CBC's Rafi Boudjikanian has the details.
This investment will provide energy audits as well as grants of up to $5,000 for homeowners so that they can make energy efficient improvements.
Today was just a preview of another announcement to come later, but the environment is such an issue for this federal government. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was front and center for it.
But before any of that work gets going on your house, you need an energy advisor who can tell you where you're losing heat in the winter or why your house is getting too hot in the summer.
And with that, Ottawa is kicking in $10 million to help hire and train energy advisors as it looks ahead to announce a Green Home Grant program it will open up to Canadians in the coming days. For the government, today's news is not just important on the environmental front while people are looking for work in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic.
So long as they're doing their homework and brushing up on their studies, we feel fairly confident that most people would be able to become an energy advisor.
But the federal Liberals have repeatedly marketed themselves as climate change warriors, still aiming for net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. Today, the opposition wondering how they think they'll get there. You still have a lot to do to catch up to your emissions reductions targets, said the Bloc Québécois. Buildings do currently account for about 17% of this country's carbon pollution, and this energy efficiency training company says retrofitting homes may seem like a modest goal, but it's a good step.
I definitely understand the government trying to address residences and homes because that means talking to everyone who can then become agent of change. When you talk to large companies, most of the employees might never know that you've replaced a boiler in the mechanical room.
Canada's not the only country to try this approach. The United Kingdom just scrapped a similar program after only 10% of eligible homeowners took them up on it. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
Tommy, listen to this.
Oh, this is country music.
I first got interested in synthesizers probably when I was in junior high school, from what I remember.
I don't know if I would have released this album if it weren't for the pandemic.
I literally got just so involved with the guitar itself.
Time now for a look at the long-range forecast. And Ashley, I know it's only Monday, but I'm already pretty excited about this weekend, the long weekend, May 24th weekend, especially when you mentioned that the weather is looking really nice.
For some of us, yeah, there's a couple of things that need to play out as we head towards the weekend, the end of the long weekend, but leading up to it looks pretty nice for now. That's exciting. Let's just take a quick look at tomorrow's forecast one more time. Temperatures will bump back up. We saw lots of single-digit temperatures along northeast coast today. Tomorrow we'll get back into those double digits. The risk of showers into the afternoon from essentially Green Bay, White Bay through to the northern Avalon. Then you'll see increasing cloud on the west coast, as well as some showers for the south coast of the island, and you're going to see your wind shift to southeasterly, so that's why it's your turn to see some of those cooler temperatures through the afternoon. Single-digit highs for Lab City, so your temperature is going to be about 11 degrees difference from what you saw today, and then into the teens from Happy Valley, Goose Bay through to the southeastern portion of Labrador. Now, after that, as we head through Wednesday, things are going to stay fairly quiet. We will see some showers roll through, though, into the afternoon on Wednesday for the island. That will be the story for most of us. Shouldn't amount to much, but that risk will still be there. It may be a little bit heavy at times along the west coast, but overall, as we head into Thursday, under a weak ridge of high pressure, you're going to see some clearing skies, and with this, some of that milder air as well. Now, a low will track north of Newfoundland and Labrador as we head through the day on Thursday. In behind that, we'll see some unsettled conditions Thursday night into the first half of Friday, but you can see that southerly flow for the island, and that means some milder temperatures for some of us. Now, into Wednesday, it's going to take a little bit of time to get there. We're looking at about 8 to 10 degrees through central and the west coast, a little cooler for the south, about single-digit highs, 7-8 degrees. And then for Labrador, back into those double digits for Lab City with sunshine for Wednesday, but then that potential for some showers will stick around for Happy Valley, Goose Bay through to the coast. As we head into Thursday, look at that temperature. 20 degrees in Lab City is what I have at this point. Maybe the first time we see that this season. 18 degrees for Happy Valley, Goose Bay. Plenty of sunshine, the story. Same thing for the island. However, in the east, we're going to hang on to those cooler temperatures, about 7 degrees in St. John's as the afternoon high on Thursday, and then Marystown looking at 13. After that, though, look at the temperature. 16 to 18 degrees is what I have for now for Friday and Saturday, and some sunshine. We may see some increasing cloud on Saturday. Like I said, there's a few things to iron out, but at this point, that's what it's looking like. For central Newfoundland, similar warm up. Look at that, 20 degrees Friday and Saturday, 2021. And your overnight lows into the double digits as well. That's pretty much where we've been sitting as our daytime highs for the past little bit. For Western Newfoundland, after you get Wednesday out of the way, the rest of the week headed towards the weekend looks beautiful. 25 degrees at this point for Western Newfoundland, for the west coast. And then for Labrador, you're going to hit those temperatures as well, 18 to 21 it looks like by the time we get to Friday, and then a big drop in those temperatures on Saturday. That's the system that I'm going to watch over the next coming days. And then for Lab West, you're looking at that 20 degrees for Thursday, and then we dip back down for the weekend, but still into those double digits. I wanted to share this photo. It's spring. Is it spring yet? That's Nain. Thank you to Jason Bennett for sharing that photo. Remember that photo contest as well. We want to hear what spring is in Newfoundland without showing us that it's spring in Newfoundland. That's a pretty great shot there. Jason, if you have any photos, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Burr.
Oh, yes.
Okay, one more time.
Okay.
One more time.
That was, see, that Nain, before I discuss this photo, the previous photo in Nain, that's the kind of originality we're looking for, because that is spring in the big land, right? So wherever you live, if you've got some imagination, you can come up with a picture, or you can find a friend and take a kind of picture like this. So what are you guys wearing there?
So this is the Here and Now apron.
Oh.
Our new apron. It's really nice, actually. It's like a denim chambray material and a toque. So if you enter our photo contest and show us a photo of something that shows us spring without having to say it's spring, then the winner will get some care packages from us, including a toque, which could come in handy. Maybe not this weekend, considering all those wonderful temperatures Ashley is forecasting.
So Ashley, why are you rubbing your hands like that?
Because I'm cold.
There's snow. See, we were like trying to take a picture, pretending that we were cold.
Okay, and that expression on your face, Carolyn?
Yeah, that's my cold face.
Okay. Yeah. So you too can look like this if you enter our contest. We'll send you.
Thanks to producer Lee Pitts for selecting this particular photograph.
It's a great photo. I love it. So the aprons. So that's kind of for barbecuing, right?
Yeah.
Get that in it. All right, perfect.
Sure, lots of barbecuing will be happening this weekend. So yeah, just send us your photos. What's the address? NL Photos?
nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Yes, please.
Okay, great. And if you can mimic the looks of my colleagues, I'll find some other prize to give you just for trying to look like Carolyn and Ashley in that wonderful photo that our producer picked.
Oh, yes. Great.
I'm just glad I had time to get the delete out for where I was in the picture so you can't see what I look like. Sort of an entry for a rodeo clown contest.
Oh my goodness.
But anyhow.
That's it. Send us your photos. Be creative. Be imaginative. We look forward to seeing them. Good night, everyone.
Bye
Good
now.
night.